Utah is hosting Iowa State this weekend. The Cyclones come in. They have a chance to still make and win the Big 12 Conference. Utah may not, but it's an opportunity to send one of the best senior classes ever off, right? And earn a top 25 upset. Can Utah get it and break the 6-game losing streak? We're breaking it down on today's Locked On Utes.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes your first listen and view of the day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network and available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. If this is your first time listening to our show, make sure you like and subscribe. Love interacting with all of you in the YouTube comments, as well as on social media, where you can follow our show on X today at Locked On Utes. Today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. You can visit FanDuel.com to get started. My name is JT Wistersill, former intern inside the University of Utah Athletic Department. Excited to be joined by Jeff Woody, a former Iowa State running back, as well as analyst who does a great job covering the Cyclones on his own podcast too. And Jeff, oh man, we met before the season to talk about this matchup, and it is drastically different for Utah. Like you're talking about, like what Utah's trying to do. I mean, get bowl eligible, because if you win your final 2 games, you can do that. It's still crazy to think Utah started the season 4-0, has fallen off a cliff because of quarterback injuries and just a lot of other offensive issues and things we will break down in a moment. But you're trying to get bowl eligible. Potentially send Kyle Whittingham out one last time with a win in Rice-Eccles Stadium. He might retire after this year, and this would be his last home game too. So there are things at stake for Utah, but look, Iowa State, everything they want. A college football playoff berth is still in front of them. That's the biggest story, I feel like, going into this one. How are you feeling about this Cyclones team right now, especially after a bounce-back win against Cincinnati?
A lot better than before last week, and not just because of the win. I mean, obviously the win helps, but you mentioned that Utah has had a lot of offensive injuries. Iowa State has had that same thing in defensive injuries, but for Cincinnati, they got 3 of their best players who were hurt back. So in the 2 games that the 2 games they lost and the UCF game ahead of that, they were playing, and still kind of are playing, with like their 5th, 6th, and 7th linebackers on the depth chart. They have 3 safeties that they normally play. They'll rotate, and those guys will play like 70% of the snaps. They'll still rotate, like Campbell likes to spell, and Higgins likes to spell guys in the secondary. Well, they were down one of their safeties, and they play a 3-down line front, which is one of their defensive tackles. Well, they were down Dom Orange in 2 of those games, and when you're down like 4 linebackers and you lose a safety and you lose a defensive lineman, they just couldn't fit anything. And teams like UCF and Kansas are really good running quarterbacks, great running backs. They have the ability to motion you into a bunch of different problems. And the young linebackers, they were all freshmen in those games. Those young linebackers, they could not figure out where their eyes needed to be, and they gave up a bazillion rushing yards over the last 2 or 3 weeks. Well, against Cincinnati, they gave up 270 or something like that rushing yards, but they gave up 60 passing yards total.
Yeah.
And so they fixed a lot of the problems by getting some depth back and those guys having some experience. So now, to answer your question more directly, how am I feeling against Utah is as bad of a matchup for Iowa State as Kansas was. Running quarterback, super athletic wide receivers, really physical running game. Utah isn't that because the quarterback problems that they've had. And so even the guys they have playing, like Jaylin Daniel, and even whoever UCF was trotting at, I don't remember who it was. He was like 6'4", but he runs like a 4.4. That's the kind of team that has given this Iowa State defense problems. Utah doesn't match up as well as a team like a Kansas does, but Utah is still a team that they're going to take their helmet off, put it at the 50-yard line, and say, stand here and punch us as hard as we punch you. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So I say I feel a lot better because of the depth and improvement that they've made on defense, and that Iowa State matches up okay with Utah. But it's still, you're going to Rice-Eccles. You're still playing a Utah team. You can't expect that this is just going to be a game where you can come in and play your C-plus game and win.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And unfortunately, as soon as you kind of just start about the motion and the way those teams put people in a bind, Utah doesn't do that. And they've tried to incorporate a little more motion, but it just hasn't worked. And while Wilson at times can run, he is nowhere near the caliber of running quarterback as the guys you listed. I think Mekhi Bernard is a really good running back. He's top 30 in the country in rushing yards, but he's also not quite at what an RJ Harvey and a Neal is as well for Kansas too. And the Utah offensive line isn't playing. I mean, Mekhi averaged 2.9 yards per carry last week against Colorado. It's not like Mekhi forgot how to hit holes. There were no holes. The Buffs were just demolishing Utah up front. So that's something that definitely concerns me going into this game. And I agree. I think it's a good matchup for Iowa State as well. How do you feel like the offense is kind of working and clicking right now? How are you feeling about Rocco Becht, your quarterback who's come on, had a good year for last year and has kind of continued that ascent and led you guys to some nice heights this year?
Yeah, the offense is the strength at kind of at this point. I mean, it's very complementary where over the last few games, one unit might play a C- game, the other unit plays an A game and kind of balances it out. So it's a pretty balanced group, but offensively, the thing that has been the most fun is Jaylin, Noel, and Jayden Higgins. And I don't know what the exact percentage is, but I think it's something to the tune of like 60 or 65% of yards and touchdowns are to those two guys. Wow. But because you have two of them, you can't just, hey, let's double team Higgins and take our chances with everybody else. So what Cincinnati did last week, and it finally cracked in the second half because you can't do it forever, is they double teamed Higgins and they double teamed Noel and they put everybody else to stop the run. And they basically said, like, I dare you. Throw it to anybody else. Well, they had 8 in the second half. Iowa State had 18 completions to 8 different guys. And so they're just spreading it around then you can't really focus on any one guy because there's 2 dominant wide receivers. The one thing I would say the offense is missing a little bit. There's another guy that will kind of like piecemeal pop in, and like Gabe Burkle, who's a tight end, had a good game. I think he had 6 receptions for like 70 yards or something like that. He had a good game. But there's not one consistent third option since Ben Bramer, who's a really talented tight end that Iowa State has, he got hurt in the Baylor game. He hasn't played since. Well, he's been the guy where if you double team Noel and you double team Higgins and you try and stop the run with everybody else, he's going to beat you for a 50-yard play. So the thing that the running game, the offense right now is slowing down a bit from what you'd expect them to be because they don't have that third option to check the linebackers, so the linebackers can play really fast up into the running game. But in the second half of Cincinnati, they were able to find a third option on most plays to open that up so Rocco could kind of, not have to force the ball to 9 or 13. But really, the offense has not been, I would say, a problem even in the losses. The only time that they sputtered a little bit is against Texas Tech. But even then, if my memory serves me correct, Iowa State had 13 drives in the Texas Tech game. All but 2 of them ended in Texas Tech territory. They just weren't able to convert it to points. So they drove the ball in that one like they had in every other game. They just didn't I think they were like 2 of 5 in scoring touchdowns in the red zone. So like it just wasn't good enough finishing. But otherwise, throughout the season, the offense has been really consistent. And even if they have dipped a little bit, they've bounced back up in the second half or the special teams have put them in a good position. So yeah, offensively feeling pretty good.
Yeah, and then Utah's defense, unfortunately, is coming off the worst performance they've had of the season. And what Colorado's doing right now, they're clicking, highest ranked team in the Big 12, or second highest ranked Big 12 team at the moment. I do believe that, yes, we have BYU. I can't believe I was blanking on BYU. Of all the teams named to be blanking on, BYU is still ranked above them, but Colorado ascending on the rise right now with what Shador, Travis Hunter, their loaded receiving core is doing at the moment too. So it'll be interesting to see. And this Utah defense had a lot of players back. They actually held the Buffs in check for a lot of that game. The score got out of hand late. They let up a lot closer to 40 points and it ended up being like 49 because of some late turnover and especially in Utah territory too. So this game is loaded with fun matchups, and I want to continue to break down the key matchups, especially on the offensive and defensive side of the ball for both teams in one moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by our friends at Skylight Frames. Missing someone this holiday season and want them to be part of your festivities from afar? Are you buying for someone who has everything or just seems unpleasable? just anyone in your life, basically. If you come from a big family, it can be hard and expensive to buy each one a personal gift for the holidays. Well, that's why Skylight Frames has the perfect gift for you. It's a touchscreen digital photo frame your whole family will love. You can upload thousands of photos with your phone and watch them appear in seconds. It's so easy to use. Setup takes less than 60 seconds. It's also easy to invite friends and family to easily share photos via the free Skylight mobile app or email. And no account or subscription is retired. It's also just better than social media, right? I mean, it's a great private way to share photos without posting it to the world or having to print out and store hard copies. Also, a satisfaction guarantee. We're confident that you'll love Skylight. We offer free 120-day returns. And now is a time that you can get in on the special offer for limited time for our listeners. You can get $20 off your purchase of a Skylight frame when you go to skylightframe.com/college. That's SKYLIGHTFRAME.com/college. You can get $20 off your purchase now at skylightframe.com/college. And that is college all caps to get in on your Skylight frame today. Today's episode of Locked On Utes is also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. And that's FanDuel.com today. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And speaking of the National Football League, we got another great weekend of games on Sunday. We're through the halfway point of the season, which is wild. We're also well through the halfway point of the college football season. Just 2 regular season games left. Utah is taking on Iowa State this weekend. Cyclones favored by a touchdown and a half. So you can head over and look at the line at FanDuel. Also, NBA, NHL, college basketball, you name it. FanDuel has you covered. Head over to America's #1 sportsbook today. All right, Jeff, continuing to deep dive this matchup, I think the thing that really excites me first in this game is, and you mentioned that Iowa State's front seven is improved, you feel like, from what they showed a few games ago because those players are back. But obviously with the way that Utah's passing game is, and Isaac Wilson being a true freshman quarterback who has struggled mightily throwing an interception in several games at this point, almost everyone probably. Actually, I think outside of this, the Houston game is the only one he has it. So it's been a rough go for Wilson. He made some of his best throws and plays last week against Colorado, but even late, like his last interception is just a play you can't make. And there are a couple of throws that you just can't. I mean, we're talking throws where there's no one else in the screen that he ends up missing. So several tough plays where it's like, okay, you need to get the ground game going if you want to aid your freshman quarterback. Now, that's what Utah is going to be looking to do. Cyclones are over 430 yards per game on the ground. Actually, before we even get to that, I just want to bring up the disparity in your guys' rush offense, in your rush defense versus your pass defense. Pass defense is fantastic. You guys have the 3rd best in terms of total yards allowed per game. You just mentioned what you limited Cincinnati to, but then flip it over on the ground. You guys rank outside the top 100. So, Jeff, where do you feel like this Iowa State defense, this front seven, do you think they're up to the task to stopping Utah? As I'm sure you guys will be loading the box.
Stopping is sort of a relative term. With as young as these linebackers are, the fits happen a little bit slower. They're just like a little bit in the wrong spot. But the thing that has been that the Cincinnati game was able to do was to get back to what they had done in the first 7 games, which is as soon as Iowa State gets up 2 scores, I don't want to say the game is over necessarily because obviously anything can happen, but it's pretty damn close because when you're forced into a position where this defense is weak against the run, relatively speaking, again, last 3 weeks, I think, and the reason they've gone from being pretty like above average. And then UCF, they gave up 350 yards, won the game. Against Texas Tech, I think they gave up 200 yards, lost the game. Against Kansas, they gave up, I think, 300 yards, lost the game. Against Cincinnati, gave up 250, won the game because they only gave up 60 yards passing. And against UCF, I think they only gave up like 110 total. So like when you get to the position where you're down 2 scores, it doesn't make a lot of sense to try and continue to run the ball. Well, that's the thing that you need to do against this defense. So the pressure that the rest of the team puts on opposing teams, puts on opposing offenses, takes them from where the strength is. And what Kansas and Texas Tech did, and really UCF outside, and then there's just crazy comeback. But like the teams that have had success against Iowa State is they have been the driver for most of the game as far as pace of play. And so Kansas just went on, I think they scored on like 6 straight drives and just were super aggressive. In the second half, they scored 7 offensive points. So by the time Iowa State like reacted to figure out what they were doing, the game had already sort of gotten out of hand. Every other game, Iowa State's offense is able to dictate the terms as to how the opposing defense is responding. So then when the opposing offense sees that, it's sort of like one of my favorite books is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. The OG Frankenstein. The reason why I'm saying this, part of the reason why Frankenstein is so scary, like why that book is so scary, it's not because it's like it's describing getting mauled or whatever. It's describing this looming feeling that something is out there that you don't know where it is. And when Iowa State's on in games that they've won and done well in, the offense is a Frankenstein on the sideline that you have to constantly, as an opposing offense, like I this is obviously not to the same level, but like the Robert Griffin, the RG3 Baylor offense, when we were playing the RG3 Baylor offense or the Geno Smith West Virginia teams, you felt them on the sideline when you were on the field as an offense, and you felt if we don't score here, they're going to score a touchdown, we lose this game. And so you then start trying to aim every throw. You then start trying to make every 2-yard run into a 12-yard run and every 10-yard run to a touchdown. And so this Iowa State defense benefits from that because every other team feels the pressure of the offense on the sideline and then starts making mistakes that they shouldn't make because they're afraid that that Iowa State's offense is going to come on the field. And like in the Cincinnati game, they had a 9.5-minute drive that ended in a touchdown that put it up 3 scores. Game was over. And so you're just constantly fearing that. So yes, like they give up a lot of rushing yards, but when the game situation is dictated by Iowa State collectively, it's like when Utah's good, it's the same thing that Iowa State did. Like when in the year that Cam Rising was able to stay healthy all the way through, and it was, like 10,
good. Yeah, fun times, good times.
Yeah. So that offense, it's not that they're going to score a touchdown every drive, but like we can't put our defense back on the field and can't put them out there. So like that's the feeling this team has. So yes, is the running game for Utah a reasonable threat? It is. But also, will the game flow allow that running threat to actually matter? Or does Utah get down 20-10 in the middle of the third quarter, and now Wilson has to throw, and he feels like he has to be perfect, and then that's when bad stuff starts to happen. So like that's the thing that Iowa State does is it might feel okay for the first half or first quarter and a half, but then after that is when things flip in a hurry, and then it goes from a tie game to being down 24 points. That's sort of how Iowa State wants to play.
Today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in award winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. Just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. With Prize Pick, you can win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. Join over 10 million users by signing up today. Prize Picks now offers Venmo for quick and easy deposit and withdrawals into your account for this sports season. You can sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25%, provided even more value for your lineup. Think Justin Jefferson will get more than 83.5 receiving yards. As a Vikings fan, I sure hope so. How about Lamar Jackson? Pass for more than 1.5 touchdowns. Cook up hot takes with your friends and win real money this football season when you and your crew run game on Prize Picks. Head over and download Prize Picks today. You can download the app and use code LOCKEDONCollege. That's all caps, no spaces, to get $50 off instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Once again, download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege, all caps, no spaces, to get $50 off instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game up today with Prize Picks. So are you saying that Isaac Wilson is not RG3?
At least not yet.
Oh man, if he could become something even close to that, I would be ecstatic. And I will say really quick, Jeff, this is such an aside, and I do want to dive back into this matchup. I mean, you've been in locker rooms, everything like that. Like, isn't it dangerous to judge a true freshman quarterback? Like, say, like, okay, this is who he is in his first year, right? Isn't that a dangerous thing to do?
100%. And I was actually going to bring up Wilson. Have you guys played? I think Kansas State, or Baylor.
We played Baylor and we won that game, but I don't know if Isaac Wilson led a touchdown drive in that game. We got up with Cam Rising. That was the game where Cam Rising got thrown into the Gatorade cart. And I don't even know if you heard about that. I still have bad memory. But then Isaac Wilson came in after that, and the Utah offense really struggled in the second half with Wilson at the helm.
So those two defenses, as best I can recall, and Baylor doesn't do it as much. Kansas State and Iowa State are pretty much the same defense. The 3-3-5, it throws everything in your brain for a loop. And Cincinnati's another one. So Cincinnati is almost Tyson Veitz, the defensive coordinator. He was a linebackers coach at Iowa State when they came up with that. So like Cincinnati, Kansas State, Iowa State, those three, and then a little bit of Baylor. If you've played one or two and you can see where the reads are supposed to be, then it becomes a lot easier to actually like, oh, this is open in this defense. And I have way more time than I think because they're only rushing 3. So the openings are smaller, but I have more time than I think. That's what like, a guy like Jaylin Daniels has played this a billion times. They played Kansas State, they play Cincinnati, they play Iowa State, and he's done it 5 times. So he's seen this defense. So he knows I can stand back there for 18 seconds if they're not coming through and do it. Isaac Wilson has not seen this defense. That's not to say that he's going to have a bad game necessarily, because who knows? But with young quarterbacks against the first time you see this defense, because it's totally different than something you've ever seen, it tends to not go well. But again, if the running game can be successful. So to come back to answering your question specifically, freshman quarterbacks, everything runs through a quarterback. And there's so many things stacked against a freshman quarterback. First is everything happens faster than you think, and your decisions have to be faster, and your accuracy has to be better, and your confidence to make that accuracy happen has to live in the same stratosphere. The second thing is because everything runs through the quarterback, your coordinator has to know what you're comfortable with and what he can actually call and how he can actually coach it. So if you're not even playing it, because this kid's been here for as a like legitimate game film for what, 5 games, 6 games now?
No, I mean, it's actually more than that. He played early on, but I mean, we're still talking about a guy who's playing high school football last year.
Right. So not a ton of actual snaps. And so on paper, in theory, a play that has this route concept on the right side and this route concept on the left side and this protection, this is dead. I mean, this will work perfectly. Come on, guy. But if he doesn't see it, then you can't call it. But you don't know what he can see until he sees enough of it for you to actually get a feeling for that. So the coordinator, in theory, might be calling plays at work, but they don't work through the brain of the guy, versus if it's a junior, you know, like, hey, anything that has a crossing combination on the right side, for whatever reason, he doesn't see it right. Let's take those plays off the table. You don't have that with a freshman quarterback. So everything's faster. You don't know what he can call. So the coordinator's going to put him in worse situations, and you then start doubting it. And everything is harder for freshman quarterbacks, but give him 2 or 3 more years and let him actually learn. Let the coordinators know what he likes. Let there be enough film for him to actually be confident in what he's doing. That's when a huge jump can happen. So yeah, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like, he's a freshman quarterback. The kid will be fine. It's just freshman quarterback. It's a hard place to live.
It is. And then Utah changed offensive coordinators. Their offensive coordinator stepped down in the middle of the year too. So you're navigating that as well. You can't obviously overhaul the system, but still a different person calling plays. And I've thought a lot of times Utah's interim Mike Bajakian, to the point you brought up, has had answers to the defense and what they're presenting, but Wilson, the freshman quarterback, can't always read it and get there. So that's something that's been challenging. So I'm really curious to see for Utah. You know, you mentioned the linebackers, Carson Ryan, the tight end from UCLA who transferred in this year. He's coming off his best game. So can Utah try and get some stuff going over the middle of the field? Probably not going to win with Dorian Singer a lot down the field. That's Utah's best wide receiver right now. And the way the interior of Utah's offensive line is playing leaves me concerned. But there was one thing, Jeff, that you brought up that I think should give Utah a little bit of hope. You mentioned Iowa State getting up and playing with a lead. That's going to be hard to do against one of the best defenses in the Big 12. Kind of all year, Iowa State and Utah have been jockeying for the best defense in the Big 12. Utah lost that because they just played the Buffs and I think it's the first time they've given up like 49 points since they played Marcus Mariota. I saw a stat earlier this week. So it's an uncharacteristic performance for this Utah defense. They did a lot of good things. They turned Shedeur over actually the very first play, and throughout the game, they caused 3 turnovers too. This Utah defense is still holding teams under. They've only one time on the year given up over 30. I think they got some good players in their front seven. They can rush the quarterback. Linebackers are healthy. This was a top 5 run defense a year ago. Those guys are back. They're not quite at that level of a top 5 run defense, but still a strong group. You got some secondary and defensive backs capable of making plays too. I think Utah has a good chance to hold Iowa State under 30 points in this game. How do you view the matchup on that side of the ball?
I think that's not wrong. I think the thing that's good for Utah is that could be the flow of the game. The bad part about that is that Iowa State's cool with that. Like it's a the thing that Utah does, which I admire about Whittingham, is again, I don't care. I got a broken arm. It's like the Dan Campbell thing. Like, I got 2 broken arms. I'm going to start biting kneecaps. Like, I don't care. We're going to fight until one of us is knocked out. And that's the attitude that Utah takes. And Iowa State sort of has the response of like, crack your neck and say, like, all right, let's do that. Because if you look at the Iowa game, that's a super physical team, able to punch back with them. You look at the West Virginia game, they want to establish physicality, punch back at them. I think after the first quarter, West Virginia had like 130 yards of offense. You look at the UCF game, they want to be physical. They were physical, and then Iowa State shut them down in the second half, made a crazy comeback. But like, they're comfortable with being physical, especially on the offensive side of the ball. So when they have the chance, I think this is a game where in the West Virginia game, both teams, Iowa State and West Virginia, had 8 drives. That's it. The whole game. Wow. That could be another one of those that happens like that with Utah and Iowa State. And I would trust Iowa State's offense to execute more consistently than that. However, turnovers then become huge. In a super low possession game, if there's a ball that pops out or a muff punt or an interception or something like that Iowa State throws, Utah is definitely good enough. Like, we can't say like, if there are Iowa State fans that are listening to this or anyone that's hate listening from like BYU, if you can't say that Utah's a bad team. They just haven't executed at times when they needed to. But if you open the door for them, they're going to kick that thing down. So it's a thing that, like, I would say that Iowa State is the better team. If both teams play B+ football, Iowa State wins this game. But if Iowa State plays B- football and Utah plays B+ football, Utah wins this game. So the Iowa State can't make the mistakes that allows a shorthanded offense to come back in. So offensively, they have to just stay ahead of the chains. So keep converting first downs. You don't have to need big plays. You don't need a 50-yard touchdown run. It's all cool if you get it, but it's just keep yourself on the field, keep executing efficiently. And a punt is not the worst thing on earth if you just put them back in their inside their own 10. Make Isaac Wilson stand in his own end zone against the defense that you've got, and do that.
Yeah, and that doesn't usually go well for Utah. So if that is what happens, then you guys could very well be in trouble. I think that's, at the end of the day, while I think Utah's defense has a chance to force turnovers and make this one crazy, if they can't, that's where, look, there are a lot more things beyond just it's a quarterback versus a quarterback, but Rocco Becht versus Isaac Wilson, it's not a competition. And that's where I do get a little nervous. When you look at this game and you compare the two teams, that's where it becomes difficult to find a path for Utah to find victory. But I also really like the point you brought up, Jeff, that this Utah team, it's a weird team that's lost 6 in a row, because even the last game was the most they've been blown out, and they still were driving with a chance to make it a 1-score game in the fourth quarter when Isaac Wilson threw that interception. Like, they've been in all of these games. They just haven't made the plays. Houston, BYU, both those games come down to the wire. Other team comes out on top. So this is not a team, and Utah, and they got way too many veterans that have been a part of the 2021 and 22 championship team. They're not just going to go out with a whimper in their final home game. So I think this is going to be a physical game. I think it's going to be a fun game. I don't expect it to be a blowout, but I'm curious, Jeff, for you, what's your score prediction for this one?
Man, I don't think this is going to be a blowout either. I think this is going to be super low possession, and it all comes down to me on like converting on the drives that you get. If you get 9 drives, say you score on 4 of them, are they touchdowns or are they field goals? If it's field goals, you get 12. Congratulations, other team gets 27. So like I think that it could be one of those games like a 27-20 type of thing where I think I feel like Iowa State just does more consistently than Utah does. I would say Utah's defense a little bit better, Iowa State's offense quite a bit better. So I would say I would fade that. I would fade towards that direction. And I think it's gonna be fun. I think you mentioned another matchup just to watch. So Darian Porter, he's the best corner that Iowa State has against Singer. Like that's gonna be a fun matchup because I think.
Really quick, Singer beat Travis Hunter. It's the only touchdown Hunter's been beat on all year, and Singer got him one time.
Yeah, and so Porter, damn good coverage guy too. He's 6'4". Like that's the type of match. So like that matchup is going to be a fun matchup. Like what against is the big ass tight end you guys have? Who's going to cover him? I think Malik Verdun is probably going to have to cover that guy. Another 6'4" guy. Like little matchups are going to be big because if you lose one of those matchups, if you're Iowa State and you give up a big touchdown, there goes that low possession game that you want to play. So I don't know. Give me 27-20 Iowa State.
I like it. Jeff, you've been very logical. You've made all of the great points on this show. You've broken it down exquisitely. And when you look at this game and the breakdown, that's where it's hard to go with Utah. But there's one thing I can't get out of my head. This could be Kyle Whittingham's last game with Utah. This is a Utah team that has just, I can't fathom a team that's been this good at home, losing all of these final home games. Also, another streak that's at stake for Utah is they haven't gotten a pick 6 this year. They have like the longest streak going of a pick 6. And I do think turnovers will end up being the difference in this one for Utah. I picked against Utah for the very first ever time in this show's existence last week, at least since I've been hosting it, and I cannot bring myself to do it again. So I am going for a wild, wacky senior night that is so crazy it could only be described in the way of Cam Rising's wild last season career arc in this one. I'm not saying Cam Rising is going to pull a WWE and rise out and run onto the field, but I do think Wilson will play inspired football. He's going to make some tough throws. Utah wins the turnover battle. A defensive touchdown is the difference. I'm going Utah 24-23.
I like it. It's a confident pick, and hey, I can't fault you for that.
Yeah, I got the Utah stuff hanging up in the background. I had to bounce back from last week, but it's going to be a fun and wild game. And Jeff, if people want to know more about this matchup, what goes into it, as well as learn more about the Cyclones, where do they need to head over to?
So I do a lot of stuff through Cyclone Fanatic. You find them on any podcast network. You can, wherever you get your podcasts. They also have a YouTube channel. I'll be doing that halftime and post game. If you want to tune in live to the Cyclone Fanatic YouTube channel. And also if you're happen to be in the Des Moines metro area, for whatever reason, I'm on Channel 5, the ABC affiliate here at 10:30, kind of breaking down Iowa and Iowa State every Saturday.
Jeff, you're the man. Really appreciate you coming on.
All right, thanks.
That's going to do it for today's edition of Locked On Utes. We'll be back with you tomorrow talking more about this could be Kyle Whittingham's final home game.